Sit on down.
Well, thank you. It's really wonderful to be here in Seattle. This is one of my favorite places to come. And it's wonderful to see all of your wonderful, beautiful faces.
So I have a couple questions for you, gentlemen, that I'm sure have never, ever been asked you before. So I wanted to start off with maybe Antony, maybe you could start us off. How did you first get in touch with George Lucas? How did you first get involved with Star Wars?
How did I get in touch with George Lucas? I mean, the temerity of that. Who doesn't know how I got involved? Anybody not? You know, the thing is, when you've been involved for so long as I have, you suddenly realize you're telling the same story that you've told, in this case, nearly 40 years, except it's true. And except there are people in front of me now, small people, young people, babes in arms, who've maybe never heard these stories, yeah? So forgive me if you know that my agent said there was an American who wanted to see me because I was an actor who was good at mime, and he wanted somebody to play a robot in a star in a sci-fi movie, and I said no, and she said, oh, Mr. Stupid, go and meet him, you never know what it could turn into. And as I say, if you press the button in the exhibit upstairs, I'm getting very bored with listening to myself, believe it or not. But I tell the story of how, when I met George, he was very nice, but even more important for me was Ralph McQuarrie's painting, that I fell in love with the character. Yeah? And here I am, 40 years later in Seattle.
And Billy D, with you joining on in Empire Strikes Back, I mean, how did that come about?
Well, at the time I was doing an awful lot of movies, and I was it was a very interesting meeting I had with Irv Kershner. I was at that particular point where a lot of actors don't reach, where I was able to, I didn't have to walk into an office and audition. At that point I was nominated for an Emmy for Brian's song, and I'd done Lady Sings the Blues and all those movies. So Irv came to my house, which is pretty unusual. And we sat and we talked for a long time. He was very much into Buddhism and Eastern philosophy, and I was at that particular time. And so we had a very interesting conversation about that and lots of other things, and we created this rapport. And as a result of that, I ended up playing Lando Calrissian. I wanted to play Lando because I really wanted to create a bigger-than-life kind of character. You know, I never approached him with the whole idea of race or ethnicity. I really just wanted to display a kind of my own unique, what I consider my own unique point of view about an interesting, dubious kind of character. So that's pretty much how it happened.
To follow up on that, can you sort of in your own words describe who the character of Lando is and sort of what you brought to it versus what kind of Lucas had described to you?
Well, he gave me the basis to the character, and I decided to really take it into a place where there was like old-fashioned romance. The old-fashioned, well, I thought of people like Errol Flynn. And I sort of patterned the character after that kind of robust, bigger-than-life, good guy, bad guy image.
And Antony, I wonder if you could kind of describe you know, you're encased in this this suit. How do you create the emotions and the, you know, I mean, when no one can see your face? I mean, how do you sort of make C-3PO alive?
I don't know where to begin, really. A lot of it acting comes from the script. Somebody else has written that. And it's how the individual actor interprets something. It's what you get for having a live actor there. And I very quickly realized that I didn't have the normal kind of gesture ability of being able to touch my face or do very much with the costume. So then you work out what you can have, and it becomes an issue of minor adjustments of the head, the shoulders, the middle that can crumble, the general attitude. But most of it comes from the fact that if he's happy, I'm happy. If he's sad, I'm sad. You get the idea. And there's something that actually projects through the way we stand as human beings when we're sad. And even with that crazy costume, which you may or may not yet have seen, I found ways of... I mean, one of my proudest moments is looking and being when Alec Guinness, Obi-Wan Kenobi, was wiped out as we left the Death Star. You remember that? And we're sitting by the chessboard. And 3PO looks incredibly sad. I'm quite proud of that. Is that all right?
I think Anthony was quite successful in displaying emotions just through gesture. But it was more than gesture, obviously. It was, you were feeling things. But you mentioned the fact that you did mime. So
yeah, and working with masks that had no face at all, whereas you will see Liz Moore's beautiful mask of C-3PO. But it's the same as playing Lando. If you, as Billy D, feel that emotion as Lando, that just comes out, you know. You had it a bit easier. You could sit down in your clothes. I couldn't. So I was hugely jealous.
Watching you, though, I always felt like,
yeah, you didn't want to get
claustrophobic.
Yeah. But I also could hurt people by bumping into them if I wasn't careful. So,
well, you weren't able to get out of that costume
Not
unless
at all.
somebody took you out of that costume.
I had to be nice to my dresses all the time.
I wonder if you both could talk a little bit about the costume design of your particular costumes. Like, what do you know about the influences that went into your particular costumes?
Well, the really astounding thing for me, I talked about Ralph McQuarrie's famous painting, and it is in the exhibit at the far end for various reasons. Do go and look at it. Look at the face, because that's what I fell in love with. And then, of course, the process of molding my body to make a statue, for Liz Moore, the sculptor, to create a 3D image of that 2D image. And she did it perfectly. She made a face that looked like that painting, that allowed me to put emotion on. George had asked her to use Art Deco type styling because why not? It was time out of place. It was a weird reference to something we know about, but it was in the wrong place. So it gave him a history, if you like. We didn't know at that point he was going to be built, of course, by Anakin years later. But there were historical influences that came from George's experience in the art world, because from very early on, George was an art lover. And then the rest came down to practicality and how do we make it work, how do we get all the 17 pieces together. And it seemed to work in the end, I think.
And Billy D, whereas, you know, Antony's costume was incredibly complex, yours is rather simple and, you know, kind of smooth and suave.
I'm just looking at Howard and that wonderful face. The cape. Mm-hmm. The cape was the key.
Yeah, the leather collar and the dragon brocaded fabric.
The cape was the impetus. Yeah.
How are the ladies in Bespin Cloud City?
You know, he was Steve, what's his name who runs Vegas? Steve Wynn. That's who I was thinking of. You know, he had his own situation out there in Bespin, Cloud City. He had a real good thing going there.
He did. So when you both came on to the films, were the costumes already set at that point, or were the costume designers continuing to work on your costumes?
My costume started 2 days after I read the script back in 1975, I think. And it took 6 months of all sorts of experimenting, and there are various archive pictures of me wearing other designs that didn't kind of work. And at one point we did a design with lots of things around the middle, like appeared to be moving, but it became too complex. And in the end, the promised rehearsal period with cameras and mirrors that I could really practice with, they said, no, the costume's got to go to Tunisia. And I never had that time. So it was a real scramble at the end. And on the night before filming, we were gluing my fingers together, and to the extent that the glue went through the glove from the metal fingers and attached the glove permanently to my body, shall we say. And they clearly didn't want me to take it off, but I kind of insisted I didn't want to sleep in these things. So it was right at the last minute that it was finished. 6 months. And it still didn't work. It didn't fit me, it didn't fit itself. 17 pieces. It's gone better now.
Well, I was presented the costume, and when I saw the cape,
You was sold?
that said everything.
Excellent. Well, I wonder if you could tell us one of your favorite moments, Billy D, working on Empire Strikes Back or Return of the Jedi.
Well, the interesting thing about that experience is that, the CGI didn't really, I don't know to what degree it existed, but I don't think to a great degree. So there was no real reliance on CGI. So we were able to, get firsthand. I've always admired those people who have those great skills of putting sets together. And so we had actual, the Millennium Falcon, we had the pieces of it, we had a whole total presentation of it. And I found myself wanting to visit. I mean, this is not so much about show business as it was about just visiting those young people who were working for George, who were not show business people, but were technicians. And I always wanted to go back and see what they were doing. So that was it's pretty boring stuff, but I was really fascinated with that kind of stuff.
Amazing craftsmanship.
Oh,
Absolutely.
It's incredible.
And I think it's easy to forget that in the Empire Strikes Back, that was the first time that the entirety of the Millennium Falcon was actually built. Because in the first film it was just half of it and the rest was painting. Beautiful, stunning perspective painting from the camera's point of view. So the first time, yes, at Elstree Studios, there was the Millennium Falcon, there was the Cloud City thing, there was your cape blowing in the wind. Because one of the costume designers' views that you'll see is how fabrics move, how it works with the reality that you're trying to create that's real.
Well, I wonder, with one final question for you both, with over 1,000 fans here tonight. Thank you all.
I actually do have a question. I did say on Twitter that I would give a free hug to anybody who's made their costume tonight. Hands up, who's made the costume? Oh, I should have said just the girls, really. No. Very good. Look at that. Young Darth Vader there with a cardboard from here I'm seeing and duct tape. I love it. I want more. Next time we do that. Oh, did you make those yourself, madam? Very good. Both of them? Right. I love the fact that part of the creativity of Star Wars has come from the screen through to you, and look at you. Brilliant, superb, made it. Right. Another stormtrooper. Very, very, very good. That's one of the things that's exciting about Star Wars and George's world, that people have taken it on themselves.
Billy
Sorry,
D.
I interrupted you.
Oh, that's all right. I guess, Billy D., I wonder if you could talk about just the legacy of Star Wars? I mean, why do you think that it is so impactful still in our culture today?
You have mythology, you have good and evil. You've got really wonderful characters that take on a kind of humanity. It's you can define it in many ways, but in my mind there is still an interesting kind of mystery about all of it. It doesn't seem to me to be an accident, this experience. And it's an experience, I think, it transcends everything on this planet. It goes, obviously, it's in the ages.
It's reaching into some deep stuff.
Yeah. Very deep places. Really? Really?
Well, thank you both very much. Let's give a round of applause. Anthony Daniels, Billy D. Williams. Thank you. And before we commence the rest of the night, remember that we got a lot of extra exciting things happening. Trivia, lightsaber duels, live music performances, and we have 3 spotlight talks that are happening in our JBL Theater, which there's still tickets for, I believe. Billy D. Williams is going to be doing an oral history with one of our curators, Brooks Peck, at 8:30. I'll be doing an interview with Anthony Daniels at 9:30, and then Brandon Allinger, author of Star Wars Costumes, the original trilogy, is going to be interviewing Aggie Rogers, the costume designer for Return of the Jedi. So thank you very much, and may the Force be with you.